Political analysts Rebone and Pearl Ncube join me now for some perspective on this latest move. Rebone and Pearl, thank you so much and welcome. Rebone, let's begin with you. From an observer's point of view, this is a clear political power play. How are you reading it?
Good evening, Iman and Pearl, and the viewers at home. I think I've been talking to some people in the PEC for almost a month, and they've been made it clear that Makhura is not going to resign, and I think the problem that with the PEC of Gauteng, as some would say, they were scared to pronounce the decision that they have taken. I can tell you that when President Ramaphosa had gone to the SADC summit, now recently, when I was talking to some of the PEC members, they were saying that Makhura said to them, no, the president has traveled abroad, I'm waiting for the president to come back. So one thing I like about Makhura is that he's playing the card that Zuma wanted to play in 2018 about his resignation, when he said that he wanted to go and introduce the current president to SADC and your BRICS, and other continental structures, But Makhura, I think, having served in the province as a secretary for the longest time, he has mastered the art of war, and he has really collapsed the so-called, the Adwele grouping, which has got majority of PEC members, as we saw its election, and they failed to really push him to the corner. And he's now they're playing to his gallery. What he said today, I got to hear about it for the first time, that one of the things he told the PEC is that he will only hand over before next year's SOPA. He wants to finish what he had committed to the people of Gauteng between now and next year, January or February, before the SOPA. That's when he will hand over. So what he said today is things that when you speak to some PEC members, have been talking that this man is not letting go of power. And today he showed his strength, that politically he's got more leverage, and that he's able, and I mean, look at what happened even last week, where he said that I was reading on one of the Twitter handles of the Gauteng government around the issue of the lifestyle audit of executive members, also the polygraphy that is going to be at play. So he is really calculating in whatever he does, Makhura, at this present moment, and he's got the upper hand.
Rebone, thanks for that. Pearl, I wonder if you concur that essentially he is playing the long game here. This is David Makhura. And what might you think he's maneuvering in the way that he is? To what end?
Thank you for the invite and greetings to you. I definitely concur, I definitely agree with the view that he is playing the long game. As you would have seen with the briefing that we had watched, there was a lot of reference to smooth transition, And when I was talking to some of my fellow analysts, there was the question of, is that a transition for, an incoming person, which definitely needs to happen in any case, or is that a smooth transition for him in the sense of what is to come next? But definitely playing the long game, making it clear, abundantly clear, that I will not be pushed out. Like all the other, premiers in other provinces whose, journeys haven't really fared well, who had been forced to vacate their positions. I am going to leave on my own terms. I am going to ensure a smooth transition. I'm going to make sure that I wrap up and finish up all the the projects that I already had moving. But definitely agree with the view that he is playing the long game.
Rebone, when you and Pearl and myself are having this conversation and looking at it through the lens of politics and how the status quo is served or determined in that particular arena, that's one conversation. The other conversation is the pressure on David Makhura over over various scandals, under the marquee of his leadership, that the public are more interested in. And you think of things like Life is Many and so on. How do you balance these two in terms of, his own performance as Premier of this very powerful economy?
He has presided over a province, that is not doing well. Even for him to get the second term, the ANC was close to losing Gauteng. He just got over 50% in 2019. That shows that even the people of Gauteng don't have confidence in his leadership. Because if indeed people of Gauteng had confidence in this leadership, he could have given the ANC over maybe 60%, for an example, in the Gauteng province in 2019 elections, because you must remember that in Gauteng you come from an era where people were saying that the ANC is losing elections because of the ANC is dropping, that because of the then former president of the ANC, Jacob Zuma, and that there was an attitude between Gauteng and National around the power struggle between the president and then the leadership of the province. And in 2019, former President Jacob Zuma was no longer there. You had President Ramaphosa, who was now the president of the ANC, but still, the people of Gauteng did not vote for the ANC under the leadership of Makhura as the chairperson of the ANC, as also the premier who was going for his second term, because we know that he's not coming for a second term. Yes, this is his last term as the premier. But really, as you speak about things like life as a demand, which is unfortunate that such happened, and nothing has really come out, where he's held accountable for such that has happened. And also interesting enough that he comes with this lifestyle audit, talks about polygraphy. Like, this man has been there for some time as the premier. And why only now is he trying to blackmail ANC people to say that, listen, you're not going to remove me. If you remove me, I will expose you, for your shenanigans or whatever that you've been doing. It's not about, I don't think that is in the best interest of the people of South Africa. Yeah. It is more about his own selfish interest. I can tell you one thing, that even when I spoke about earlier on about the trip that the president had done to the DRC for the SADC summit, those comrades that I spoke to within the ANC, they were saying to me, Makhura says he's waiting for President President Cyril Ramaphosa to come back and appoint him as a minister. And by the way, you must remember that there is a vacant position at National, and after the resignation of Ayanda Dlodlo, and also you also have got the deputy minister, in women. So the president is probably to do a reshuffling now, or after the conference, defending which politics the president will also play.
Yeah, and that was actually, you've preempted the question I was going to get to later on what's next. And as you say, perhaps got his sights on a senior public service position, perhaps even a ministry. He's got to preserve his political career as well. Paul, I want to bring it to you, and just some of the other names that are in the mix. Paul Mashatile through Rebone Maile are dominant figures in the PEC. What are some of the themes around this decision and their dominance in terms of Mashatile's bigger aspirations for DP? Maile is running his campaign in the province. How much closer does this take them?
Man, such a difficult question. And I think it's, made so much more difficult by, the media briefing that we had seen. If you had asked me this question yesterday, I would have said that the strongest contender for the position would, have to be Comrade Panyaza Lesufi. But it's rather unclear for me right now, as matters stand.
I mean, Lesufi wouldn't want to throw his hat in the ring right now. Sorry to interject there, but just on Lesufi, who in a way is expressing, some regret for this particular move, but wouldn't want to stand in, in the context where there might even be a reshuffle, and he's kind of caught up in that.
Puts him in a really difficult position. But, with the briefing that we had seen, and this is probably going to be a rather controversial take. What I see is Panyaza eventually coming in, but there is obviously a very strong push for whoever comes in to come in a very orderly fashion. So I think the whole point of, the briefing that we had even seen and some of the latest developments that we've seen rather, is just Makhura on his own, definitely saying that I will not be bullied out. I will not be bullied out. We already know who's going to come in. I think, the majority of us would agree that Panyaza is definitely a strong contender. That's my take. But the whole point from where I stand is to just ensure that as he comes in, there is a smooth transition, that things don't happen as abruptly as they do in other provinces.
Rebone, your take on that?
On who will be the next premier?
Well, who will be the next premier, and whether it would be premature for Lesufi to kind of, be, in the position, in the context where the picture might change very quickly and he loses that longevity in such a prime position.
I mean, when I speak to some of the PSC members, actually the PSC, it seems like they've resolved on Lesotho. It's just now formally, having that process of pronouncing once the premier is gone. Because I'll give you an example, and I want you to have a look at this. What happened in KwaZulu-Natal? People like Sibonise Duma, they don't come in as the premier. When you, especially during a period like this, it's politics at play. You have to be very calculative. Who do you feel to the ANC? And I was saying, for example, if you look at the third candidates that were fielded to the ANC, Nomusa Dube was working alone. Those others were just for mere formalities to the officials of the ANC. But we could all see that Nomusa Dube will be the next premier. And it was a well-calculated move again, so that the officials don't reject, the names that will be proposed by the province. So even in Lesotho's Lesotho coming as the next premier will be a well-calculated game by the Aduwele faction, who are seen maybe to be a bit disruptive, and we know that the Aduwele have got majority in that PC. Whatever that Aduwele says will go. If they don't want Lesotho, you won't come in. But I can tell you, there seems to be consensus around Lesotho. And is this also, the perception that probably they don't want to be blamed, that if they lose 2024 is because they didn't put Lesotho. You remember when Lesotho was Minister of MEC of Finance, the people of Gauteng had to complain that they want him back in education. So they also want to play that, and say, okay, we want to give the ANC so that we're not blamed in 2024. Then Lebogang comes in after 2024 elections.
Yeah. Well, he's going to want to spend that currency that you just mentioned there rather wisely. Thank you very much to you, Rebone and Paul, for your analysis on this latest development this afternoon. We appreciate your time.